Welcome back, it's Mike, and after we've talked about mindset, which we've done, our next obvious topic for us would be what we call goal setting and motivation. If you remember, we talked earlier about the fact that we have to have some goal in front of us to attain if we expect to remain excited, determined, focused on the business that we have. You and I both know that listing and selling real estate every day is a very challenging business. For anybody to say that it is not a challenging business is not telling you the truth. And it's challenging for a lot of reasons. But one of the primary reasons why it's so challenging is because, as a real estate salesperson, you're probably feeling most of the time like you're a little island in the middle of the Pacific. Because in most cases, there is not a lot of support. There's not a lot of people around you cheering you on. It's not like you're in a team event where everybody's cheering for you to do your job and to prospect and do lead follow-up and take a great listing. You're in a business that is almost 100% individual-based business. Therefore, it's what you do, what you say, how you think that makes you succeed or keeps you from succeeding. And the challenge that each of us has, and it's a huge challenge, is remaining motivated on the days you don't feel like working, or even more specifically, trying to get you to set goals so you can be motivated on the days you're supposed to be motivated. Earl Nightingale said in his great recording, The Strangest Secret, that the biggest problem with mankind, and he wasn't talking about men or women, he was talking about mankind, he wasn't talking about real estate agents, he was talking about mankind, is the fact that virtually 95% of all the people in the world have no goals, no objectives, nothing to drive them, nothing in front of them. They have no carrot out there they're trying to reach or attain. So when it comes to obvious motivation, and we take a look again at the word motivation, motive to action, it does require that we have to have a motive, we have to have a goal, we have to have something we're trying to attain. And whether that goal be to do 25, 75, 150, 200 transactions a year, if you don't have a driving force behind what you're trying to accomplish, quite honestly, you're not going to do much of anything if you do anything at all. Excuse me. So let's take a look at goal setting and motivation. I've written down some points. I want you to think about them very carefully because this probably is one of the more important, along with mindset, CDs that you're going to listen to. So the first point I wrote down is, as we have stated in the past, we have to learn to think bigger than we think today. We have to learn to think bigger and to focus on our business plan. That's assuming you have a plan written out, what you want to accomplish. We've already covered that. You should have a plan in place. It's also good to set short-term goals throughout the course of the weeks, the months, the years to keep you excited and on track. How many listings would you like to take this month? How many transactions would you like to have this week? How many appointments would you like to have this week? A short-term goal of any type that is exciting to you is going to keep you focused and on track. The second point under goal setting and motivation, it sounds good to have a well-balanced life. Everybody wants to have a well-balanced life. Everything is just absolutely perfect all the time. However, people who are highly successful in an area of their life, whether it be business or physical or mental or spiritual or family or money, they're usually unbalanced in other areas of your life. Now the question, of course, is why? Well, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time to focus in on doing, for example, 100 transactions a year. See, let me give you point 3, and I'll come back and I'll talk about points 2 and 3 together. If, for example, your goal is to sell 100 homes a year, don't be disappointed if your life is unbalanced for a while. It's part of the process. If you're going to do 100 transactions a year, and it's always funny to me to get letters and emails and phone calls from people that say, well, I met some of the people that were big producers and their lives were terribly unbalanced and my life is perfectly balanced and I would never want to be like that. To which I respond and say, great. How many deals did you do last year? Well, I only did 10, but that's not the issue. I have time for everything in my life. Well, on 10 transactions a year, unless you're selling $600,000 homes, you're not going to make enough money to do much of anything with your life. Let's be honest about it. I mean, it takes an income in today's society to go out and live your life balanced the way you want to live your life balanced. So I don't buy into that fact, excuse me again, that, we're working so hard to be balanced and it's okay not to be productive. And I don't buy into the fact that just because somebody else chooses to be highly productive, that we criticize them for the fact they want to be productive. I mean, if you want to spend 6 hours a day in the gym becoming physically fit, watch. If that's your goal, go to it. I'm all for it. You know, if you want to spend 6 hours a day at church praying for your own soul and for the soul of mankind, I'm all for it. Pray for mine while you're there. And if you want to spend 6 hours a day playing with your kids in the backyard, I'm all for it. Go for it. But then don't complain to me when you meet somebody that's doing 75, 100, 150 deals a year and making more money than you because they're not spending the time doing what you're doing. Excuse me again. Obviously, we have to understand that everybody's goals are individual. Everybody has different things they want to accomplish. But we do know for a fact that if you have nothing you want to accomplish, you're not going to accomplish anything. So if you set a goal to become a high producer, if you set a goal to really become productive, to make a lot of money, don't be discouraged if your life is out of balance, whether it be for a short term or a long term. Again, think about the fact, how many people have you met that are incredibly successful in any given area of their life, that all of their life is balanced perfectly? And the answer is very few, if any. So the fourth point I wrote down is share your business goals with your family if you have a family. Show them the benefits to them if you accomplish these goals. The more your family buys into your program, the better off you are. It's interesting because so often, you know, we set plans for ourselves. They're very individualized. We don't share them, which is not uncommon. And then, of course, you know, our family is suffering or our health is suffering and so forth, and these things do take place. It's called human nature. But at the same time, if you sit down, for example, with your family and say, my goal is to do 100 deals, and here's what I have to do to make that happen, and here's the work I have to put in, and here's the income we will have as a family, and I want to share that with you so each of you understand what mom or dad is going to go through to make this happen, and here's the benefits to you and to you and to you if I make that happen. So if you listen to Earl Nightingale, if you listen to Napoleon Hill, if you listen to some of the great minds in our past, they will tell you time and time again that basically there are 5 areas in your life that you have to have some kind of a goal set for yourself. Physical, taking care of yourself. Mental, making yourself clear in your thinking. Spiritual, to make sure that you are clear on the fact there probably is a higher power. Family, making sure that you're spending the time to make sure that part of your life works well. And obviously money, making the money required to make everything else in your life work. Now, don't be confused. Money is an important part of a person's life. Don't be confused because you grew up in a poor background or because you grew up in a family that had no money, that it's okay not to have money. I want you to stop for a minute and think about that. It's okay to not have money. That is a crazy thought for you to have. It is not okay for you not to have money, because if you don't have money, you can't do the kinds of things that you would like to do. And don't tell me you don't want to do anything with your life. Don't tell me that you just want to sit around, you know, and watch the grass grow. If that's the case, you shouldn't be in real estate. You know, you should be a gardener watching the grass grow. Think about the fact that we have to set a simple one-sentence goal for our physical, our mental, our spiritual, our family, and the money part of our lives. And that's the closest you'll probably come to being balanced, the fact that you have a goal in each area. Where you spend your energy and time is what you're going to accomplish. So I wrote down point 6. Remember, you become what you think about. Therefore, if you think about your goals daily, there's a better than 50% chance that something positive is going to happen every day to make sure your goals come through. And then point 7 is a great thought. If my goal is to think big, which I think all of you are trying to expand your thinking, you have to set goals that stretch your mind, your body, and your emotions. You can't stay always within the exact same area you've always operated in and expect your mind to grow and your business to grow. You have to stretch yourself. Thinking big is that process. As some of you know, a couple of years ago, a young man who's a great agent out of San Jose, Dominic Nicoli, came to me with an idea, and he said, Mike, would you take the time to coach me on how to think big? Dominic is a highly enthusiastic, very energetic, very focused, very determined, great salesperson who's also very analytical. And sometimes when you have this high analytical personality style, you put yourself in a bit of a box in terms of what you can accomplish. And Dominic was very open. He said, Mike, I need some help on thinking big. And I said, well, let me think about that. Well, he came back to me a week later and said, I've got a group of people that all want to work on thinking big. So we started a group called Thinking Big. And we've met every Monday for the last, I guess, couple of years now, working on this topic of thinking big to expand dramatically their mind, their body, and their emotions, and of course their production and income, to make them stronger and better people. It's interesting because thinking big is a learned process. Mike Vance used to say all the time that, if you're a highly creative person, it's something you've learned to do. Well, I believe that thinking big is something you can learn to do. So if you really want to stretch your mind, your body, your emotions, your production, and your income, you have to obviously think outside of what you normally think about. So to help you do that, point 8, it says review your goals weekly, and that's W-E-E-K-L-Y, not W-E-A-K-L-Y, and take steps every week to achieve the goals that you've set. Yes, there's going to be weeks where you don't do your job the way you want to. There's going to be weeks where you're not as successful as you'd like to be. But if you're reviewing the goals you've set every week, then guess what? It makes a huge difference in helping you accomplish what you want to accomplish. Point 9 is a wonderful point. There's incredible power in reading and writing your goals on a regular basis, and preferably weekly, where you sit down and say, okay, my goal this week is to take 5 listings. And you write on a 3x5 card, my goal is to take 5 listings, and you sign your name to it, and you put it in your pocket in your purse, and you keep that with you. Because there's tremendous power in reviewing and seeing. Remember, Earl Nightingale said you become what you think about all day long. If you keep those goals in front of you all day long, guess what happens? You're going to move forward on a regular basis. And then, of course, point 10, a goal is a dream, which it is, with a deadline, and a commitment that turns into reality as it is completed. A lot of people say, well, I'd really like to do 100 deals. And I go, by when? Well, whenever it happens. Well, it isn't going to happen until you put a very strong date as to when you want to accomplish it. Until you make a commitment to making it happen, it is simply not going to happen. So a goal is a dream with a deadline and a commitment that turns into reality as it is completed. Watch, the only way we're ever going to succeed at a real high level is to make sure we have a deadline for what we want to accomplish, when we want to accomplish it, how we're going to accomplish it, and the commitment to make it happen. Point number 11, create obtainable short-term goals. Obtainable short-term goals to keep you motivated and moving forward. As I said a while ago, why not just set a goal, for example, if you're at this point doing, say, 15, 20 deals a year, why not set a goal to take 1 listing a week? You take 1 listing a week, that's going to move you from 15 to 20 deals to 25 to 40 deals, depending on your marketplace. It's a short-term goal, 1 listing per week. When you set short-term goals, it keeps you a little bit more aware, it keeps you more excited, keeps you on track. Point number 12, be sure to put a completion date. We talked about this earlier, for each goal that you have and for each action step you're going to take. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about a simple goal-setting system for you to follow. And you'll see in this goal-setting system the importance of taking action steps. So we'll talk about that again in a few minutes. Point 13, remember that success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or objective. I remember one day sitting with Earl Nightingale in his office, and this was obviously a long time ago, and I said, well, okay, if success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal or objective, would a bank robber be successful if he robs banks? And Earl looked at me with kind of a perplexed look, and he said, well, that's a strange question. I said, well, if a person sets a goal to rob a bank, and they rob the bank, and they complete it, and they walk away with the money, would they be considered a success? He said, no, because it has to be worthwhile. See, the goals you set have to be worthwhile. Are you able to go out and list 50 homes in the next 12 months? Is that worthwhile? Of course it is, because you can offer great service, do a great job. You can really do something exceptionally good for the public in this case by getting their home sold. Point 14, there's nothing that you cannot have once you've mentally accepted the fact that you can have it. Probably the hardest part of our goal setting is this particular point, is accepting the fact that you can really do almost anything. If you take the time to meet, to talk to, interview, have breakfast or lunch, correspond with any of the hundreds, well actually I should say thousands, of great agents throughout North America that have come through the Mike Ferry sales system over the years and developed these wonderful, productive, and highly profitable businesses. Most of them, if you said to them, Could you imagine 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, doing what you're doing today? And most of them would say, well, I thought about it and I always wanted to do it, but I really couldn't imagine doing it. But then once I started doing it and I realized it could be done, wow. Now the challenge, of course, for each person that does something extraordinary is the commitment of time and energy to make it happen. So most of these people you're going to meet, well, they probably at one time didn't think they could do what they're doing, but through time, through study, through research, they made it happen. There's nothing you cannot have if you're willing to commit to make it happen. And then, of course, the last point is maybe probably the most general, but probably the most specific, in the fact that it's basically a simple goal-setting system for you to consider and follow. So try this. First, letter A, decide on the things you'd really like to have in your life, okay? Business, personal, spiritual, family, etc. B is write them down. Write down what you'd like to accomplish. C, list all the obstacles that you can see at this moment and a solution. D, set deadlines for attaining these goals you've set. E, put action steps in logical order. Okay, I want to take 100 listings next year. I took 75 this year. Okay, what are the action steps I have to take? Well, for example, I have to improve my communication with past client centers of influence, as an example. Okay, then I put down letter F is visualize your goals every day. Excuse me. You have to learn to visualize, close your eyes, and see yourself attaining these goals you've set. And then letter G, be persistent. Don't quit because you had a bad day, because you're going to have a few bad days. It's just called life. Every single day is not going to be magical for you. So in review, decide on what you want, write it down, list the obstacles and solutions, set deadlines, put action steps in order, visualize it happening, and be persistent. I think this whole concept of goal setting and motivation can be an exciting concept for you. I'm looking forward to hearing about the great results you get, and I'm looking forward to talking to you on our next CD about money management. Talk to you then.